Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another session of our VTIC Insight Series. And it's lovely to be broadcasting today, at least with the sun shining. It's makes quite a bit of difference to our time in isolation to at least have the sun out there shining. So I hope everyone is doing okay and as well as can be expected in the circumstances that we're obviously living in right now. Over the last many weeks, we've actually been taking quite a number of calls, a lot of correspondence from many of you in relation to the issues that you're confronting in trying to renew your insurance. And through it all, we've been working very closely with our partners at Adroit, and we're very, very pleased today to be able to convene a group of experts from our longtime partner and VTIC member, Adroit Insurance and Risk. So today we're going to go through a bit of a presentation, but before we get to that, I just might turn to some of the basic housekeeping rules that we generally go through with you. Of course, your microphone has been muted and your camera's turned off as per normal. But what we're going to do today is slightly a little bit different. Because we think that your questions are going to be pretty detailed in terms of what you might want to ask, rather than just feeding them into the Q&A, we're asking that you might please today put your name into the Q&A box, not the chat box. Put your name into the Q&A box, and we will actually call on you to ask your question. Once I call your name, Kate will then unmute you so that you'll be able to ask your question. And I think that just might be a better way to do this today in relation to the content and potentially complexity of some of the questions that you might be asking. I'm also pleased to say that today we will be recording the session. Adroit was quite happy for us to do that. So we'll be loading the session up onto our support hub on the VTIC COVID-19 page. And you'll be able to refer back to the recording, but also if you're talking to friends and colleagues who might have questions, it could be very useful for them to actually refer to the content after today as well. So today it's my pleasure to bring, as I said, our longtime partners with Adroit Insurance and Risk into our Insight series. And Craig Love will be presenting in the initial probably about 20-25 minutes. Craig is just going to go through some sort of key information and I guess high level kind of insight into where we find ourselves and the things also that you can do to help to prepare for the process that you need to go through in getting your insurance. And then we are going to take about 20 to 25 minutes at the end where we'll be able to actually do some Q&A, some detailed questions with each and every one of you. So hopefully this will be an incredibly informative and insightful session. And with that, Craig, I might turn over to you.
Great. Yep, thank you, Felicia, and I really appreciate VTIC and the members in inviting us today. And yeah, we're just going to go through a few topics today, and I'll just run through them. If you just go to the next slide, please, Kate. So what we're going to spend today doing is just talk a little bit about Adroit Insurance and Risk and who we are and what we do. Just a general insurance market update. We'll spend a bit of time on tips on preparing your general insurance renewal. Go on a little bit about risk management plans and industry risk profiling. And then we'll go into a bit of some tips on reducing insurance premium. But obviously, we don't want to sacrifice any coverage. And then we'll go into our Q&A session. So if we can just go to the next slide, please, Kate. Thank you. Just a little snapshot there on Adroit. We've been originated in 1978, small broking business in Geelong. 4 decades later, we've got about 145 staff across 9 branches in regional metropolitan Victoria, and we service over about 25 individuals and businesses. In 2018, we branded from Adroit Insurance Group to Adroit Insurance and Risk, and that's quite important. We don't see ourselves just as a broker, getting you the best, the cheapest price, we really want to delve into your business, know what you're about. Yeah, obviously price is a big thing, but obviously we want to make sure that coverage is adequate as well. Just been really important, we are not the insurer, we act on behalf of you, the client. So we're almost like your advocate, a partner, and we represent you. If you just go to the next slide, thanks, Kate, and I'll just take you through like a little bit more in depth on what we do. Obviously, we like fact find, we seek to understand your business. We develop strategies to manage your business, specific needs, finding the right insurance cover for you. We negotiate insurance solutions on your behalf. So there's a number of insurers out there in the market, and obviously one of our aims is to find the best coverage and pricing for you. We present you with options, so you can be clear and confident with your choice. Then we review, agree, and we get the right program in place for you. We don't just like sort of bang into new business, that's it, see you later. We're there for ongoing service. We're there for questions throughout the renewal period or throughout the period of insurance. And obviously come renewal time, we're there to review your program. We also provide some networking. So throughout the year, like this, we've got the Insight Series. We attend VTIC conferences. Obviously, that's not quite possible in these times at the moment. So a lot of things are by webinar, but we have industry training, newsletters, blogs, and articles. And most importantly, we're here for you at claim time. So we also manage claims. So just to reiterate, we take time to understand your business, its exposures, and your insurance needs. It's not just to provide the best insurance price. We also provide advice and guidance with respect to a number of products in the market. We assist with providing and coordinating risk management advice. So it could be as simple as general fire protection and hazard advice, or a more complicated risk survey report. We're always here and available to answer your questions. As I said, it's ongoing. It's not just at renewal time. So we're always there to pick up the phone and answer any questions you may have. We review contracts and let you know if your insurance will respond appropriately. And obviously, again, just to reiterate, come claim time, we're here to manage the claim for you. So just go to the next slide there, please, Kate. This is just a general insurance market update, what's going out. These come from the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority. They put out a quarterly report just on a general insurance update. As you can just see there, so claims are up by about 15%. Underwriting results are down. Investment income is down with insurers due to lower interest rates, and net profits taken a hit by about 57%. Just go to the next slide there, Kate. And one of the big drivers on that has been some natural catastrophe events, such as the bushfires, hail, and now COVID-19 is having an impact. We won't know what that full impact is down the track. The second quarter report for APRA is due out at the end of this month, so it'll be interesting just to see what effect COVID-19 has had on the general market. If you just go to the next slide again, Kate, thank you. This is just a bit about the insurance cycle. So at the moment, like there's basically two markets in the insurance cycle. Soft market, where there's rates fall, there's more competitive, more capacity, less claims. We're probably well in now to like a hard market where we're seeing rates rising. some cases, market capacity is being eroded and risk selection has definitely tightened up. Insurers are being more selective on the type of risk that they underwrite. The flow-on effect, like I said, we are seeing rate increases, particularly in management liability, public liability and property, ISR in particular, where obviously claims are gone up quite significantly. Insurers are making a loss on that, on those classes. We're seeing some insurers withdraw from markets. There's like reduced limits, restricted coverage for new endorsements, especially around COVID-19. So that's pretty much just a general summary of the general insurance market at the moment. So we'll just go to the next slide, please, Kate. So, as I said, we're into a hard market. So coming up to your renewal, I've just got some 6 steps here that we really recommend and that you look at. But one of the keys is just really early preparation on your renewal, and we'd recommend you sort of start looking at it 3 months out. Be transparent, provide any risk profiling that you've got, your risk management program. The more information that we can give the insurers on really understanding your business, the better, especially in this market. Check your website. Coming off being on the other side as a property underwriting manager, insurers will check your website. And as enticing as it may be to list every service you can offer, they will look at that. So you might have activities on there such as horse riding, kayaking, abseiling. If you're no longer able to offer those services or activities, we recommend that you update the website to reflect that, because insurers will have a look, and that will be can sometimes make up part of their underwriting decision. And of course, like remarket early when required. Don't leave it to the last minute. As Adroit Insurance Risk, we're here to source the market, seek out the best terms, and just put time and effort into the application. I think with the more you can give, more underwriting information you can give, the more an underwriter knows about your business, the better it is to sell that, and that'll provide the best outcome for you. And another thing is it's really important to stick to agreed timelines. You don't want to leave it to the last minute. So again, that's part of the early preparation. But stick to timelines. We'd like to provide terms, like 3 to 4 weeks out, not last minute type, 1 to 2 weeks out, because then it could be some issues, and we just obviously need the time to get out to the market and get you the best price and coverage. Just go to the next slide there, Kate. There's just a few risk management plans and a bit on industry risk profile. Not sure if you're aware, but in a lot of the property policies out in the market, there is an occupancy clause. So given these times where your business might be shut down, just ensure that you discuss the clause with your risk advisor. We're able to negotiate with underwriters and just make sure that the unoccupancy clause is either removed or extended during the shutdown period. There's like a condition, as I said, it's unoccupancy clause. So a lot of them are 30 days, 60 days, 120 days. Once the premises becomes unoccupied after that time period, a lot of the conditions in the policies will either restrict or cease to cover. So it's vitally important that you either, as I said, have it removed, or we extend the day period out until you're up and running again. We also have an Adroit client checklist. So for temporary closure of operations, it's just gives you guidelines on things to do. So might be considering redirecting your mail, ensure deliveries and packages are not left on site, just making sure fire, smoke detection devices are working, all your security is up and running, etc., etc. So there is a slide later on where on our website we have a lot of tools and resources that you can utilise, but I'll go into that in more detail in a later slide. We also have a group, LMI group, where we can access really good industry risk profiling. So I think Anthony sent something through. There's about 30 different occupations in the tourism sector. So it could be anything from campground operator to events, to accommodation, B&B, etc. And what it does, this report gives you a hazard index rating. So it's basically from high to low. So it might pick out things like your property insurance, your business interruption, public liability, management liability, workers' comp, etc. And on risk, it'll rate the risk on your occupation accordingly. So it's like a 0 to 100. So if it was sort of down to 0, it's lower risk. If it's up higher to like 80, it's like a higher risk. So it just gives you the significant exposures to your actual occupation. Really good tool to really drill down and make sure there's no gaps in your cover. And there's also like a risk checklist in that report, which identifies likely risk, provides initial analysis, and recommend any loss control measures. The other thing really important in these times is just to update your business activities. So if you, for example, could be now like a hotel that you're doing food deliveries, make sure that's noted on the policy. Or, I had an example where there was a gin distiller that was now making hand sanitizer stuff. Really important that if any of your business activities are changing, that we're aware of it, because what you don't want to be is caught out if there was a claim and that activity wasn't actually specified. And on the other hand, if there's like some high hazard type activities that you're not doing, for example, might be a winery that's offering horse riding or bike tours, if they're not in operation at the moment, notify that, because that can make a real difference to the way an insurer will look at rating your business. If you just go to the next slide, please, Kate. Thank you. As I indicated before, we have an Adroit website, which basically got some really good tools. It's got a lot of information on COVID-19, updating what's going on with restrictions. We've got links to like federal government, safe work, Beyond Blue, access to like emergency relief packages available, cyber security, like essentials in preparing for COVID-19. So really recommend that you have a look. It's got continually being updated. Obviously, as we know, in these times, things are changing by the day. So really good resource to have a look at, and got some really good information in there. Next slide, please, Kate. Now, here's a really important slide, I feel. Just tips on reducing your insurance premium. But obviously, key is we don't want to sacrifice any coverage. But just like on a lot of industrial special risks or property policies, there is a premium adjustment clause. So obviously, if your business interruption cover, like your gross revenue, has have a downturn during the year, really important to utilise that premium adjustment. That's basically an adjustment at the end of the period. If your turnover was up here, it's dropped down to here, would have been drop down by $1 million. Right? That's what insurers rate on. But with the updated figure, the lower figure, you can get some return premiums there. The other thing is just to make sure you've got your turnover and activities adjusted accordingly. Like I mentioned before, if there's high hazard type activities that you're no longer doing, please let us know, or let your advisor know, so we can update the insurers come at renewal time, because there might be some high hazard activities in there that can make a big difference to your premium. And even staff numbers or turnover on like public products liability. We've had examples in like the hotel industry where it could either be totally shut or just doing meals at night with delivery, but turnover's right down. And we've had a case where the operational activities on the public liability for running hotel, in its full volume, we save $3,000 or $4,000 because there's underwriters out there who recognise the reduced activities, and we'll rate that down accordingly. So there's just a couple of tips there. The other one is laid up cover on commercial motor. So if you're a bus tour operator, for example, and your buses are out on the road, we can still obviously get you the cover for non-accident damages such as fire, malicious damage, theft, but obviously the big exposure for vehicles is the on-road exposure. But whilst they're laid up, there can be significant premium savings for that laid up cover. Again, I'll just hope we're not too far away of reopening, but who knows. But when we do reopen, it's vitally important to readjust things back to the way they were, or update them. Workers' compensation. We've had a couple of really good outcomes in this category, where one of the examples I've got was a large engineering firm. Our rework people went out, visited the client, realised that they were wrongly classified, and there was a massive return premium given to that particular client. And it was a larger client, but it was a significant. I'm talking over $100,000 return premium, and that was retrospective as well. So it's just something to think about on your workers' comp. Just make sure that your business is correctly classified. The other thing is, in this market, obviously I've talked about rates rising, appetite changing, etc. So on your first renewal, if that goes up, then don't take yes for an answer straight up. We're here to push back on insurers, to get you the best outcome in regards to that. And as I indicated before, we can also remarket as well. There are a number of client relief packages and deferral payments out there available. There's options to explore, like premium funding, maybe like short term, maybe make your policy quarterly, just to help cash flow in these times. Another point is increased deductibles. So by increasing your excess or deductible, so you might have a 500 excess, so that means like on a property policy, you might be up for the first $500, but if you increase that to 5 or 10, that can have significant benefits too for your premium. So just another thing to keep in mind. Just go to the next slide, please. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to finish off. We do have a hotline that we've set up. That's available to all VTIC members. So whether you're a Adroit customer or not, it's free to you. No obligation. And we've got myself and Anthony, ready to take any detailed queries and help you out with your insurance queries. So as I said, that's available, not just to Adroit clients, it's available to all VTIC members. So, yeah, so please utilise that. Yes, so thank you. I know pretty short and sweet, just a general overview. I hope that's helped. But we do have a Q&A session now. So we have Anthony Di Fiore, our Specialty Risk Manager, and Jason Daniels, our Sales Director, and myself to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Craig. And yes, we're going to invite Jason and Anthony to join into the session. We actually wanted to bring together a number of our contacts and friends from Adroit to answer your questions, and hoping that we had all the right people in the room to do that. But of course, just wanted to flag as well that if there are some very detailed questions that you might have, or indeed something that you don't really feel comfortable talking about in a public forum, we're going to put that hotline number up again at the end just so you can grab that, but you can actually go through and talk to them directly there and bring your issues and questions to the table. And I did want to reinforce, and I know Craig had a bit of that in his presentation, but Adroit is actually not the insurer, so they are actually acting on behalf of their clients to find the best insurance coverage for you. So, they do advocate more for the client side as opposed to being the actual insurer. So I guess just kind of keep that in mind when you might have some questions. But looks like we've got the first person. It's come up here as Richardson family. Not sure who that would be, but Kate, can you please open the Richardson family to be able to ask the first question? Are you there with us yet? So, okay, well, we might actually, are you there?
Sorry. Hi, it's Moni here. How are you?
Hi, good, welcome. Sorry about that. Bit of a delayed entrance, but we're all ears.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, I'm a tour operator in Mansfield and I'm doing limited tours, but I've heard of another tour operator in the area who has put his insurances all on hold. Do you think that's a good idea, or is it? I don't feel comfortable doing that. I suppose he's closed altogether, whereas I've just reduced my capacity from a minibus load of people to taking one-on-ones, and we will car convoy in our own cars to the start of a walk and do a walk so that we can manage social distancing and everything else. What would you suggest?
Not sure who wants to pick that one up, guys. I'll leave it over to you to decide who's the best answer of that question.
I'll jump in if that's okay. Hi everyone, Jason Daniels here, Sales Director. That's a really good question. Thank you for kicking it off with such a fantastic question. We're getting that question a lot from not only our VTIC clients, but clients across the board. And strongly, our advice is not to put on hold all your insurances. Certainly are areas that, and each client's different, so there's no broad brush answer to this, but certainly we spend time delving into our clients' actual business. And just as you described then, there's still some exposure going on within your business. So there is covers that need to stay in place. But what we do is certainly look at where we can reduce those covers without impacting exposure. Turnover of liability, for example, would reduce the liability premium. You've still got assets that still need to be insured against fire, etc. So we obviously look at that and make some recommendations around that. Craig touched on his presentation around increasing excesses is one option. Whilst you're not operating, it might be an option to increase some excesses, which generally lower premiums. So there's a number of levers that we can apply. And again, business is a little bit different. So we spend the time to understand what exposures exist and what covers you still need to keep in place.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for the, I was going to say for the call. That's not quite, that's not quite right, is it? I've got a couple questions here that people have put into the Q&A, so we might just go with those. Charles has asked a question here. Where on the website are the tools that you mentioned in your presentation, please? I think, Craig, that refers to some of the content you talked about, the tools on the Adroit website.
Yeah, there's on the front page, you'll see like a COVID-19, which was up on the presentation. I think it was one of the slides, but there's like a COVID-19 information box that you can click on, and that'll take you in. Yeah, that's the one there, and that'll take you through into like a lot of resources, tools, etc. Links to government or WorkSafe, etc. So we sort of try to categorise it as best we can. But if you go onto our front page on the Adroit website, you'll see that COVID-19 box. If you just click onto that, that'll take you through to all the tools, resources, etc. But the other thing I did mention was the risk profiling, which is a really good report on a number of occupations within the tourism industry. If you come through to us on the hotline or send us an email, we're happy to share that report with you. So, which I think it was on one of the slides anyway. But yeah, we have access to this external. But if any of your members want one on their particular occupation, we can certainly download that and send them a PDF form and walk them through it if you like.
Good, thanks, Craig. There's a question here from Con Saru. I hope I'm saying that surname correctly. We run charter boats and only received a 5% discount on our marine cover. Does this appear satisfactory considering our boats have been laid up for 5 months already? Bit of an opinion piece, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, great question. I haven't been involved in any myself, but it does seem probably a little light on. So, if they're...
This might be a good one, because I would have thought, Con, they might probably need to dig a bit deeper into what's actually included in your coverage.
Yeah.
The elements that you've laid up for the period. So that might actually be a good one to actually call through to the hotline and actually talk about it in a bit more detail. Because, at first glance, you're right, the 5% probably does appear a bit light on, but I'm sure they probably need to dig into some of the circumstances around that to form a judgment. So, Con, that might be worth a call to the hotline afterwards.
Yeah, definitely.
The next question here is, it relates to the Alpine resorts. I know that, Anthony, you and I have spoken about at length the difficulties with our Alpine resorts and a lot of our tourism operators in the high country. This is talking about, do you insure Alpine resorts, ski lodges? But I guess probably it would be in terms of, can you work through insurers that would help them to find some protection?
Yeah, thanks, Felicia, and thank you for the question. So, Alpine risks are obviously a high hazard risk for insurers at the moment. Coming off the bushfires, they're quite conservative, and obviously in the Alpine region, a lot of lodges are older construction, which makes them slightly more difficult to insure, and also the fact that they are closed down for long periods of time during the off season. So it requires specialist insurers, and previously a lot of that specialist insurance was provided by Lloyd's of London. Lloyd's of London have actually pulled out significantly from the Australian market because of the difficulties with the bushfire. So capacity, finding an insurer is difficult. We've had a reduction in supply. However, there still are some specialist providers in that field that we do have access to, and we are insuring businesses in that area. But as to Craig's point earlier, it really comes down to a selection process. Insurers are picking the best of the bunch, and it comes down to each individual business really identifying, differentiating itself from the rest of the market, and highlighting the benefits, whether it's because it's a new construction or it's fire protection, it's business continuity plan, whatever it has to pat itself on its back, on the back. It's really important that those benefits are highlighted as part of the submission, and that the submission is that work commences early, because there are so many insurers that are now pulling out of that area.
Well, Anthony, what you just described,
Felicia,
going through a job application.
yeah. So Felicia, if I can just add to it, we have an office in Albury, and you saw our spread of offices, hence the fantastic synergy we have with VTIC and a lot of its members as well. And we have a couple of risk advisors sitting out of our Albury office that specialise in alpine business, and those points that Anthony just touched on, it can be for a business owner to do that themselves. That's what we're here to help you with. That's what we can help you put together. We can put you in contact with surveyors that can get out there and conduct a survey, get the information that we need to be able to put in a sensational presentation on your behalf to the insurers. So it's all about how we present the risk and what risk as well, working with you, really putting forward, the best possible presentation we can.
So that question was from anonymous attendee. There wasn't a name on that, but hopefully that individual might get in touch again with the hotline, because if there is the affiliation up in Albury would be really good to be able to work with someone at that local level, or near local level, I should say, to be able to help in that process. But what you've just outlined there, both Jason and Anthony, I think really points to the comment that Craig made in his preso around, you've got to start early. Clearly this is a lot of work now. I mean, I made a bit of a joke in that it's like a job application, but clearly it is. And you've got to put together a presentation that, really puts you in front of the next person in terms of seeking that insurance. There's another good question here from Lisa Logan, again, one of our friends in the Alpine world. Our premium was paid in full between lockdown periods, and now have no income for the foreseeable future. Would we be entitled to a review of our turnover or activities for the period of our coverage? Again, I think that relates to some of the comments Craig made around reduction in turnover.
Yes, correct. And you may have to wait until the end of the policy period for that to kick in place. Most policies have an adjustment clause in them that you can then look at the end of the period. But you've got to prompt, hopefully you are dealing through a broker of some description, and sometimes you need to prompt your broker on it. Some aren't that proactive. So, and it does vary from policy to policy how it's written, but typically there is an adjustment clause. You can go back and look at what your projected turnover was and what the actual turnover was. Hence, the premium can be adjusted. The actual assets, the building structures, etc. Typically, there's not much room for movement on those, because there's obviously still other exposures existing, such as fire, etc.
Lisa, does that answer your question? We can always unmute if you'd like to ask a deeper question in that regard, or potentially, again, you can always follow up with the guys afterward today. Just while we'll wait and see if Lisa comes back, but there's a next question while we're waiting here from David Chitty. How important are the Australian Adventure Activity Standard Good Practice Guides to adventure and outdoor operators PLI insurance?
Craig, I might let you answer that one. That sounds like a Daniel Orelli, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to see those guidelines, but if it's like industry standards and adhering to them, I think that's going to help with your application. But again, it's probably something like to have more detail and advice on.
Felicia, look, I think anything that shows that we're doing something to minimise risk, that we're aware of risk, we're identifying it, we acknowledge it, and that we've got some frameworks around it, anything that members are doing in that regard, definitely show that to the insurers. And the other thing to remember is that usually insurers' applications are all about drawing out the negative. You know, what's wrong with this business? Why shouldn't we insure it? That's what the insurers want to know. The insurers want to protect against their interests. What the applications rarely ask for is all the good things about your business. So anything that helps with minimising risk, understanding risk, assessing risk, has some protocols about how to deal with customers in those fields is just another tick for the member, and definitely something that we would raise and we would use as ammunition when we're negotiating with insurers.
Good, thanks, Anthony. Lisa Logan is actually back on the line and she's been unmuted. Lisa, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my initial question was answered about that negotiating the turnover. But I guess it's what I struggled with this year was actually getting the insurer to be negotiable on the elements that weren't actually applicable to an alpine property. Like, I live there full time all year round. I operate the business all seasons. So it's kind of, there wasn't any room for negotiation on this perceived that we're only operating there for 4 months. And there was a few other aspects to that as well. So I just sort of wonder how negotiable are the insurers on these sort of things. I feel like it's always such an off-the-shelf product, and particularly for the alpines when the risks are not the same for every property and certainly not every resort. If that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, it does, absolutely. It's disappointing to hear that the insurer lacked some flexibility. Certainly, I would say in most cases, the insurers that we have dealt with have been reasonable in their approach around offering some flexibility. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of this one, and again, we can delve into it a bit deeper and have a closer look. But yeah, we need to, I guess, getting back to what Anthony just said, we need to demonstrate that the risk has changed, that the exposure is far less than what it was when you paid your premium at the beginning. So we need to demonstrate to the insurer that they've collected money on an exposure that has changed significantly. And there is some goodwill feeling out there as well with some insurers that are offering up different options, again, around excesses or payment options and that sort of stuff. But that's a bit more difficult if you've already paid your premium. But we're finding, and this is what we do day in, day out, you've got to push hard. You've got to come up with a case. You need someone to go in there and know who you're talking to as well. Sometimes we have to escalate these things within insurance companies to get the right answer, and really gets back to hold of someone who's going to go into bat for you and be a really strong advocate. I think sometimes we just accept an answer too quickly and we move on, but it's certainly something we do pride ourselves on as a business, to get the right answers and the right outcomes and provide the right solutions. Gents, do you want to add anything more to that?
Yeah, I think another thing, Jason, is like a relationship that we have with some underwriters, and the right people to go to. Sometimes it might just be like an escalation type example, where if we go into that person who's up the ranks a little bit, that can always help and put the pressure on to insurer, and also customer loyalty as well. If they've been with that underwriter for a number of years, we should push that barrow as well.
Okay, can I just interject there, gentlemen? Because I escalated this issue with both the federal and state members, and I perceive that some of the reason why we have an ombudsman looking at the insurance issue now is because of people like myself who are highlighting it. But what I did find is that I am actually, my broker is with Adroit too. So I perceive that issue was pushed through. They did escalate it, but the feedback was there were only 2 insurers prepared to look at alpine properties, certainly in Victoria, and possibly in New South Wales as well. And the pushback was sort of like, there's no market, there's no competition. This is what it is. We're not negotiating.
Yeah, it certainly does make it more difficult. Absolutely. There's less players in the market, so, we can't be playing one off against the other. So I can understand how that would make it more difficult. I would expect did you say it was through an Adroit business? Did I hear that correctly?
Broker, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So it gives me some comfort that he or she would have taken that process. We're happy to have another look at it if you like offline, again, give you some comfort around that. But yeah, it's one of those things that at the moment it is a difficult market when there are reduced insurers, which reduces the options.
Yeah, and you are right. That's probably, I'm sure, why the Ombudsman has stepped in and the inquiry is happening now. But maybe that's a good one to actually take offline and try to dig a little deeper. There's another one here that I think might be something, and I know Fiona quite well. She's currently has no insurance. Fiona said she's gone through multiple brokers who have tried national and international companies, and they've all deemed us too high risk. One company quoted $52,000 for her property, and interruption then the underwriter denied the policy. Her previous cover through CGU was $14,000 annually, so huge big jump. I know that this would probably, I'm sure Fiona's not the only one, because I've heard this story time and time again. But I do think probably, Fiona, it might be worth taking this one offline, guys. If you'd be happy to, and Fiona can get in touch with you via the hotline to talk about this, because I know she's not alone in people that haven't been able to find any insurance. And it's, obviously at the moment with us all shut down, it's not a problem, but these people can't reopen when it comes time for us to activate, because, without insurance, it'll be impossible for them to operate. So, Fiona, if you're happy with that, I think this might be a good one to take offline and sort of dig into what might be possible to help. Just conscious we've actually got quite a lot of questions popping up. How far do you go with risk mitigation? This is from Peter Chiller. Does it really impact on your premium to go through that process of the risk analysis and risk mitigation?
Me personally, it depends on what industry we're in. But Felicia, I think insurers have come to expect it now. It's almost an expectation that those that don't have any risk mitigation could potentially not find insurance. So rather than receiving a discount for having risk management in place, because there is a reduction in supply, insurers are just being selective and saying, right, you're not meeting our minimum risk requirements, and therefore we'll either not offer you insurance or we'll offer you something that's so ridiculous that it's not commercially viable to even buy it any longer. And it's really sad to see businesses having to make that decision about, well, I've got $1 million asset here and I'm not going to insure it because I just simply can't afford the premium when I'm not generating any revenue. And it's a vicious situation that we're in, that the downward spiral that we're faced with, these increasing expenses and plummeting revenues, and there really seems to be no workable solution. So insurers are expecting that as a minimum, unfortunately. Now, I find in those high risk activities, so whether it's horse riding, adventure, alpine, insurers are expecting it as a minimum. Those that are more vanilla risks, like cafes, restaurants, accommodation, can get away without having up-to-date risk management and more likely to receive a discount in those industries, if that makes sense.
But look, I mean, what you were talking about before in the preparation piece, clearly, the more you can do, the better chance that you're going to have to get the best deal. So, I mean, taking every step, I would suggest, from what you've been talking about today is actually really important in the overall scheme of things.
And Felicia, importantly too, we've got access to free risk management plans. So at the moment where businesses are closed down and they're not operating full time, then hopefully the managers and the owners have capacity to look at their risk management plans and review them and prepare updated plans. We've got templates for that, free templates. As Craig mentioned earlier, we've got free risk assessments for an industry that we can provide. So all that IP that is usually paid for, we're more than happy to provide that for free to VTIC members, so that members can start preparing well before their insurance comes up, and that way they have that ammunition that I mentioned earlier when they do go to negotiate with insurers.
Yeah, and I think we shared that a couple of weeks ago, Anthony. We did a dedicated mail out where that information was contained, but I'm sure you can find it on your website as well. I'm assuming, can they download that material from your website?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, okay, good.
Or again, call us on the hotline and we'll share it.
Yeah. Good question here from Simon Percy from 13 Cabs. With business owners owning their own personal vehicles, do you work with the laid up cover in that regard, and can you help push back on our insurance companies for car insurance? Is that something that you guys cover as well?
I can comment from a larger fleet point of view. Absolutely, laid up cover is an option, and we've recommended it and used it on several occasions. Numerous occasions. I must say I haven't come across it on a individual vehicle. I'm not saying that we can't talk to an insurer about that, but if I think that's where the question's going on I heard the 13 Cabs, either on a taxi or a single vehicle. I'm not sure, unless one of the other gentlemen can comment, but we could find out for him or her.
But generally, the laid up cover, what you're saying, Jason, is that it would be on, like on a suite of vehicles if you were a tour operator or a bus company, that type of thing. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, more on the commercial later, larger vehicles, but I have seen a couple of personal lines or private motor insurers advertising that if you're using your car less, come and speak to us. So I think it'll be like a case by case, but we're certainly happy to look into that for you.
Right. Thanks, Craig. There's a question here. Oops, it just bounced. Hang on one second, I've lost it. Question here from Graham. As a sole trader tour operator, I got my public liability and vehicle insurance via 2 different brokers 6 months ago. How easy is it to get a bundled policy for both? I found it difficult and expensive to get each of the 2 as a startup. Any thoughts on that? So combining policies in order to try to create some efficiencies.
We highly recommend it. For a number of reasons. I think if you're dealing with one risk advisor, that particular risk advisor understands your whole business and can make recommendations and give you advice that will relate across the whole business. We can talk about due dates when the policies are due, bringing them all together or spreading them. Funding options and payment options are much easier to coordinate and talk about as well. And yeah, you've got typically one contact, and in the event of a claim, getting back to us acting as your advocate, you're dealing with one person on any of your claims. So I think it makes sense. But sometimes you do have particular brokers specialising in certain areas, so there is a case occasionally to separate some part of your business out. And to answer the original part of the question, it's quite a simple process to bring it together. One broker, just making sure that broker can handle all aspects of the business, though, would be my question.
Okay, so a good one to take offline, Jason, and dig a little deeper into it in terms of the requirements.
Yes.
Okay. There's a question here. I'm just going to read this out as it's written. did I understand your last briefing correctly? Retroactive means we can be sued up to 7 years post a tour, so we must remain insured even if planning to leave the industry. Do all policies enable a look at current turnover for P&I insurance? And is hibernation endorsement only available for public liability? There's a lot of questions in that one, Michelle. So the first question, let's unpack this. The first question is around retroactivity. And if you were to leave the industry, would you need to keep your insurance in place for 7 years in order to cover yourself in the event of a claim?
Yeah, it really is a good question, and look, this comes back to the importance of having an advocate, because there's so much technical jargon within insurance that it makes it a minefield if you're trying to navigate on your own. With certain policies, they're called claims made policies, and that's traditionally professional indemnity insurance and management liability insurance. And that simply means that you need a policy in place at the time that someone makes a claim against the business, not when the work was being completed. So there was a tour operator that negotiated a tour in October 2019. The actual client makes a claim in October 2021. There needs to be an active policy in place in October 2021 for that claim to be covered under a professional indemnity policy or a management liability policy. The reverse of that is public liability operates on the basis that it's the policy when the tour was undertaken that would respond. So it really depends on what type of cover we're talking about. With regards to professional lines policies, professional indemnity and management liability, if the business ceases, what we recommend is a 7-year runoff cover, and that allows 7 years worth of ongoing claims to be made for work prior to the business ceasing.
Okay, good. Thanks, Anthony. This next one, we've got a little bit more time. I think it's actually quite a good question here for small operators. It's a bit general, but does COVID-19 present any new risks to businesses or requirements to ensure that maybe we haven't necessarily thought of? I'm a small, low-risk tour operator, but equally interested in hotels, hospitality, etc. So it is kind of a higher level sort of generalist questions, but some of the key things that you would think COVID-19 has thrown up as new risks for businesses.
Yeah, of course. So one of the greatest risks for a business during COVID-19 and a failing economy is trading whilst insolvent. Now, the government's actually issued some relaxation on those laws. However, that's only for a 6-month period. And if a business continues to trade whilst insolvent or in fact goes bankrupt, then there can be claims from customers, creditors, employees. We're also seeing obviously retrenchments during this period, and for any employment related claims, breach of contract, wrongful dismissal, particularly for small businesses who don't have that internal legal assistance to give the right advice about how to retrench staff correctly. Obviously there's job seeker, but that doesn't apply to all staff and won't continue to apply in all cases. So the insurers are concerned about employment related claims, and the other one is frauds. So we're seeing insurers becoming very conservative around embezzlement of funds within a business. Staff members potentially keeping their job, but their partner, for example, may have lost theirs. So they're having financial difficulty at home, which opens the opportunity or increases the risk of misappropriation of funds, creating fake invoices, creating fake customers, misuse of credit cards, things of that nature. Fraud is a big risk. And then finally, obviously, there's the transmission of any disease. So any business who fails to meet COVID-19 hygiene rules and unfortunately infects customers could be up for liability for any health issues, any bodily injury or death that's sustained because of that transmission of the disease.
Yeah, that's a big one. I know that everyone's very concerned about that last one you noted, Anthony. We've been talking a lot about implications and liability for opening up, whether it's a venue or
Yeah.
an accommodation business. What is that legal liability if someone were to get sick while they were staying in your establishment or visiting your attraction or in your venue? So yeah, I think that's an unfolding one we need to really keep our eye on. We're just about ready to wrap up here, but I don't want to go past Graham here, and I think Anthony, you'd want to get in touch with Graham. We've got a comment here from Graham Harcum that he was waiting for a call back from Arthur. He put in a request for a P&L quote, but he hasn't heard back from him. So, Anthony, I'm hoping maybe you guys might be able to follow up. Graham, if you would be so kind, maybe put your contact details into the chat box and we can pass those on to the guys here today. So if you put your telephone number into the chat box or email, whichever you prefer, we'll make sure that we pass that on to the Adroit team so that someone comes back to you.
And again, look for any urgent queries or any queries that members do have. Call the hotline that comes directly through to Craig and myself, and we'll respond to that immediately. That's
fantastic. Thank you, Anthony. Look, we're going to have to wrap it up here. We're coming up on 2 o'clock, and I know there's a few more questions in here, but we have actually gotten through quite a lot, guys. So I just want to say thank you for taking so much time into the question section, because we knew that there would be a lot on this topic. We do encourage, you know, the hotline is up there on the screen still. We do encourage you to give that line a call. Make sure that you know, you are get all your materials ready so that it can be a really effective opportunity to have a conversation. But that line is there specifically for our VTIC members. So if you are a member of VTIC, you will have access to use that hotline, and hopefully we can get you some help, or indeed at least get you some answers to questions that, you know, obviously are really critical to your business right now. We have Graham's contact details in the chat, Anthony, so we'll make sure that we send that off to you so that someone can follow up with him as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to say a big thank you all, but in particular, can you join me in thanking Craig, Anthony, and Jason for taking so much time with us? It was a really productive session, guys, and I think, as you can see, it's a topic that everyone is grappling with right now, and certainly your help in guiding people through a process which is, in some cases, insurmountable for many, and in the midst of the crisis that everyone is going through, to have this on top of that, it just becomes, you know, almost too difficult to handle. So your support in helping to guide our members through a really difficult minefield at the moment around insurance cover is greatly appreciated. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll be coming out to you shortly with our plans in the next fortnight. But everyone take care, and we're doing our best to try and keep feeding information as much as we can. And we know that this is, again, a really hot topic for many of you. So we will make sure that we send off as much info as it comes to hand for you. And we'll look forward to welcoming you in a couple of weeks to our next session. So thanks, everyone, and have a really great day. And thanks again, guys, for all your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.